Everyone seems to idolise Paris, to see it as this great city with so much to offer, this city where it must be impossible to get bored or ever get sick of. The city of love and romance, of culture and fashion, a historical city filled with museums and grand monuments. And it is full of all these things, but I have a different view. I hate Paris. Shocking, I know. There are things I love about Paris and that I am starting to appreciate more now, but we'll get to that later. For now, here's the stuff that really gets to me. Paris is cramped. The streets, the cafes, the gyms, the apartments, there's not much room. If you compare it to London, it's 15 times smaller and almost 4 times denser in population. As someone who was used to living in suburbs most of her life, it feels a bit suffocating at times. The streets are narrow, there's never room to get by on the pavement, there's not that many open spaces, and not all that much greenery either. I also don't think it helps that Paris is a pretty low city, in that its buildings don't go very high, so you're kind of stuck in this sea of buildings. I find myself craving air, fresh air, nature. Whenever I do go out, be it to the suburbs to visit friends or really away, I suddenly feel like I remember how to breathe again.
Veuillez laisser descendre avant de monter, s'il vous plaît, messieurs, dames.
In the same vein, it's also so crowded, with or without the tourists. The streets get packed, and as I've mentioned, a lot of them are pretty narrow, which doesn't help, and you constantly find yourself having to weave through a sea of people, and that really does get on my nerves. A lot. It's not just in the streets, but in the shops, the restaurants, the gym. It's that same feeling of suffocation. I do think I have a bit of a biased view because I live in the centre of Paris. There are much quieter neighbourhoods, but this is about my experience, and well, I live in a very busy neighbourhood, the epicentre of the city. Whenever I have to go out to actually do something, when I'm trying to get somewhere in a relatively timely fashion, it gets so frustrating pushing through the crowds. You start to understand why Parisians are the way they are, with such a short temper. Paris is definitely the most tense part of France. The rest is a bit more laid back, especially the south. Is the noise level. I live on a street with a lot of bars and restaurants, and man does it get loud. And it's not just on weekends and Fridays. No, it's every single day of the week. Well, Sunday evenings tend to be a bit quieter, thank goodness. Even with the double glazing we have installed, you can still hear the chatter. And if you want some fresh air, you're gonna have to be willing to put up with a good old background noise. It used to be a lot worse pre the double glazing, making going to sleep a very difficult task, as if it was easy anyway. It's not something that you necessarily think about when you visit a place, but it really ends up having quite the impact on day-to-day life. Of course, there's other things I could list that I hate, like how smelly Paris can be, with rats scurrying about in the early hours, or how the metros always seem to be under construction and closed, or how small the gyms are, how grey the weather can be. But if I were to list everything, we'd be here forever. And to be honest, the ones that really bother me are the ones that I've mentioned. Despite all these things, I have come to appreciate Paris too, especially recently, because it is all of those things I described at the start. Vibrant, full of life, exciting. And it's true, it is difficult to get bored in a city like Paris. So, here are the things I love about it. I love how whenever you step outside, be it to run an errand, wander around, or go to work, you're always going to come across something interesting. It could be a cool shop, someone playing an instrument, singing in the street, or maybe you'll walk past some kind of event. The other day I was on my way to my grandparents when I saw a huge group of people on skateboards doing some sort of tour of the streets. I love how lively Paris can be. Even if it gets on my nerves sometimes, as I've said, it's what makes it such a cool place to be. Walking around recently has brought me a lot of joy actually. I especially love all the busking. There's so many talented people out there and you get to go about your day all whilst being serenaded for free. I mean, that's pretty cool. Or a couple pennies if you donate, but I'll still call that free. The other day there was this guy playing this instrument that I'd never seen or heard before, and it just sounded so beautiful. Another great thing is having everything on your doorstep. In Paris, everything is about half an hour away by metro, and most of the places you need are just a short walk away. Having lived in the suburbs most of my life, I do really appreciate being able to pick up a couple ingredients last minute, only 2 minutes from my doorstep, having a hardware store right opposite, a stationery and tech shop 2 blocks down, thrift stores 5 minutes away. You get the idea. Literally anything you need will be within walking distance. And then you've also got all the museums and galleries right at your doorstep, which should be a whole other point really. Paris pretty much has it all in terms of a city. I love how you don't need a car, although I wouldn't mind getting a bit of driving practice as it does get a bit rusty living here, but it is nice to have all this walking freedom. There's a few pedestrian streets too, although some are basically pedestrian but cars can go through, and when they do it is a bit of a nightmare for both parties, but probably for the driver more than the pedestrians. Okay, I admit, Paris is a beautiful city. It's hard to deny that it is an extraordinary place with a lot of pretty architecture around. Just look up and you'll see some cool designs on the buildings. Even in apartments, it's not uncommon to get the classic Parisian mouldings on the ceiling or the walls. Everywhere you go, you're bound to see something that catches your eye, be it the historical buildings around or just a cafe that looks nice. It's just a pretty aesthetic place to be really, and I don't think I need to justify that much more, because everyone likes to be somewhere that looks good, and it definitely elevates the walks you take around the city. The things I love about Paris, like how nobody cares if you cross the road when the light is red, the huge choice of restaurants there are all around, and on the same wavelength, the food here, the ingredients, the cooking. Although that's something that applies to most of France, I love how easy it is to find any sort of ingredient or food around here, with cheese, wine, fruit and veg shops on every corner. But overall, what I've learnt through making this video, going about getting footage for it, is that after all, I think I've grown to love Paris more than I hate it. I still don't think it's somewhere I'd want to settle down in and have a family, but I do think it's a great place to be in your 20s, when you can really make the most of the city and all it has to offer. Anyway, that's it for my ramble in Paris. I hope you enjoyed it and that maybe it helps you get a bit of a perspective on what life in Paris can be like, if that's what you're looking for. See you soon. Signing off, Zoe.